Welcome back to the DeFi Football YouTube channel. This week I'm with Daniel of the Non-League Podcast, and he's a Kings Lynn fan. We're going to be talking about Kings Lynn season and sort of asking some questions about the season, the good bits, the bad bits, stuff like that, where the team are, how they got where they are. Before we get into it, you're from obviously the Non-League Podcast, which started up a few months ago. I think we were talking about before this. Do you want to quickly sort of give a brief overview of what it is you do over there with obviously a few of your mates?
Yeah, it's just about 5 or 6 people having a bit of a laugh with each other, keeping it serious, of course, when it needs to be. Yeah, we just kind of take the mickey out of each other. We support everything, and yeah, we have a good laugh. We cover matches. We've been going on a lot about the funding situation and over and all that lately. Yeah, it's just a bit of a laugh, really, and we hope to get more people through soon watching it. That's all I really can say at the moment.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the description. Hopefully, I remember to link to that, and all your links, of course. We'll speak about that bit at the end. But obviously, this video's talking about Kings Lynn. So, Kings Lynn, bit of background there for people who don't know Kings Lynn. What's the general history of the club and sort of the sort of reached past 10 years, 20 years, or whatever history of Kings Lynn?
Yeah, so I'll go on about the past 15 years. So in 2006, we made it through to the FA Cup second round, and we got on Sky Sports and we lost 2-0 to Oldham even, sorry. And then in 07-08, we won the national, I can't believe it, the Southern League, sorry. We won the 2007-8 Southern League, got promoted to the Conference North, as it was known then, and then got demoted the next season because of our ground. We went bust in 2009 and reformed as Kings Lynn Town FC in 2010. We played in the United Counties League first off, spent 2 years in there before winning promotion. In 2012-13, we won the Northern Premier League Division 1 South, which is a mouthful to say. Kind of stagnated in step 3, made a playoff final in 17-18, Southern League playoff final, and we lost 2-1 in the last minute to Slough, courtesy of Manny Williams. Oh God, that's good. We won the playoffs in 2018-19, beating Warrington after extra time in the Super Playoff final 3-2, and then we won the National League North last season on PBG after it got curtailed because of COVID. Other than that, yeah, that's all I can really say about the history so far.
So obviously the old club going bust, and then the new team, coming back, starting from the bottom, renamed, coming back up through the league, sort of similar to some other clubs we've seen, and for other reasons as well, obviously. Sort of like your Wimbledon and stuff like that, when they had their club stolen, and now like Bury and stuff like that, they're starting again and stuff like that. So you said the team stagnated a bit, but I guess also Kings Lynn fan happy to be back somewhat where they sort of were before in that sort of National League North/South, because you're on this boundary between the National League North, National League South, where you can sort of be sometimes in the North, because it's that sort of awkwardness, which to me as a Northern, it sounds a bit strange, Kings Lynn in the North, but it's just because of a little bump, stuff like that, it's sort of just in the North and stuff like that, so it's a bit strange, a bit like, I think, is it Gloucester? I want to say Gloucester, who sometimes get put in the Northern League, and it's a bit straight like Gloucester, that sort of dead Southern, down there.
Yeah, they got transferred from the National League South to the North a couple of years ago. Yeah. South to North.
So going sort of into this season then, on the back of obviously getting promoted last season, what sort of Kings Lynn fans saying, thinking about what they could do? Obviously, difficult circumstances financially for most teams. You've got stuff going on in the world and everything's been shut down, obviously. Kings Lynn fans going into the season, what were they thinking, and what were sort of the star players, if you like, who you were thinking, well, we're going to stay off or do anything this season, are you going to be our main guy?
Yeah, a few people thought we could maybe finish mid-table and playoffs, but I was kind of keeping it low-key at the start, saying I'd be happy with battling against relegation and staying up. Yeah, I think obviously we will start now because of no relegation, which I don't want to celebrate it, but I kind of want to because I want to go to all the grounds next season. In terms of star players who would keep us up at the start of the season, obviously before it all got furloughed and everything, I would have said Adam Marriott. Maybe put a bit of Dale Southall and Michael Gash there. They've been absolutely brilliant. Gash and Marriott over the past couple of years, and Southwell since he joined last January or February. All three have been brilliant as a front three. We obviously got Jamal Loza, who then left after a few games. Thought he'd keep us up as well. But yeah, I think there's not one player I can pick out in this Lynn team that I think would keep us up, because it is a team. We play as a team, we win as a team, lose as a team. It's not like some clubs where it's each players are in it for themselves. We actually play team football, if that makes sense.
So as well for Kingsland this season, what would you say probably the best bit has been so far of this season for the team? Obviously, you were like fans, obviously, to celebrate whatever this good moment is. But for the fans watching from home, what would you say would the best moment be?
It'd have to be beating Port Vale in the cup, I think. Obviously, it's the first time the new Kings Lynn got into first round proper of the cup. Only because Notts County had to pull out, unfortunately, because of COVID in their club. But yeah, I think making the first round proper was probably the biggest achievement of the season. Beating Port Vale in the first round proper even was the biggest achievement of this season so far. And being able to play up against teams like Hartlepool, Notts, I would say Torquay, but they've kind of fallen off at the moment. Obviously, they beat Woking 1-0 today, but not really much beating Woking, I'll be honest. Putting up against teams like that, absolutely amazing for a club. I think it gives the players a lot of confidence, and I can't say anything other than fair play to the players who work hard just to get us into this situation. To be able to play Woking, Torquay, Sutton, all that lot.
Something I can see just from looking at the fixtures is there's been some very heavy defeats this season, sort of thumpings, 5-0 against Solihull, 5-1 against Sutton, 4-1 against Bromley. What's that then? Because that's quite, you expect one or two of those perhaps a season, but to have four of those big thumping defeats, what's that about, and what do you think the sort of weaknesses that the team sort of suffering so many of them this season?
At the start of the season, honestly, the defence, it was nothing, it was nowhere. I'll be honest, I was calling for their heads at the start of the season, but they proved themselves now. So our defence was a big issue. Our keeper Archie Mayer, he's made some brilliant stops this season, but it's one of those things where you can't. If the defence leaves the keeper vulnerable, they're always going to score. I'm not saying it's expected with Lynn, but it sort of is as well, because obviously new team in the league, defence isn't going to be everything, and it's been proven that it's not going to be an easy ride in this league compared to in past seasons where we've steamrolled our way through it. It's not going to be easy. It never will be easy. And yeah, it's probably a learning curve as well to get those kind of defeats for a team.
You said just at the start there that start of the season you were sort of calling for the heads of the managers and stuff like that, but going into the first sort of, let's say, 5 or 10 games, going in, getting used to the National League and sort of getting used to it as a fan, and as obviously the players getting used to it as well, and the managers and all that. First 5 or 10 games, what were you thinking, and what were your sort of first impressions of the league?
First 10 games, it's going to be difficult. I don't think I'd call for Ian Culverhouse's heads, really. It's more the defence I don't have an issue with, but I'd go for, because they have made some stupid errors this season. But yeah, we had a good first 2 games against Yeovil and Maidenhead. And then it was that game against Solihull which just pegged the team back a bit. 5-0 thumping. Don't think anyone really expected it. And I think that just kind of knocked our confidence. And after that, I'm trying to remember when we won after that game. I believe it might have been Barnet was the next win, 2-0 in November. But yeah, I think it's always going to be hard, but obviously this season, no relegation, everything, we're staying up. I think we can go for it again in 21-22, then hopefully put a name for ourselves in this league. I'm not saying playoffs because that's too much, but mid-table at least, I reckon I would like to think we'd get at least. But yeah, it's all about experience at the moment. There's nothing more I can say apart from that.
Well, we've seen it over League Two and the National League over the past few seasons, obviously because of financial situations that lots of clubs have gone bust and stuff like that. So obviously Bury they went bust, which leaves less relegation spots for the teams who were still surviving. And obviously because of the situation this year, there's now no relegation in the National League, like you said before. How does that feel then? Does it feel a bit sort of wrong in a way that sort of the team sort of surviving because of other teams going bust like Macclesfield and now Dover have stopped playing their games and because of no relegation? Does it feel a bit sort of wrong? Because I know the team I support, I won't say you're supporting, but the team I support, in the past I've had that sort of situation where a team has been helped out by teams not existing because the teams have gone bust. And to me, it was always a bit like, it felt a little bit happy to stay up, but it feels a bit like sort of benefiting off other clubs' demises. Is that a bit worrying, do you think, for the Kingsland fans?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying at the start of the season, Macclesfield going bust really, and I hate to say it because obviously we went bust 12 years ago now. So I hate saying it, but Macclesfield going bust really did help us. Obviously, yeah, it doesn't feel good celebrating staying up because there's no relegation. But these kind of things at the moment you have to take with what's going on. You just got to take it really because obviously I'm gutted because I won't be able, apart from Torquay in December, I haven't watched us in the National League in person. Um, it is gutting really, but you just take it. You got to take it. I'd rather there be a relegation battle because these are now just all dead rubber matches really. But yeah, like I say, you take it, you move on, you go again next season, and you see what happens from there. Really.
So then going into sort of, you might say, rest of this season, next season, what do you think then is sort of possible for Kingsland to do in terms of where do you think the team needs to strengthen?
Before we furloughed, I'd honestly say we need to strengthen defensively. I think we're going to lose Sonny Kerry, midfielder, to a League One, possibly even Championship team. That he's only 20 years old, he is, and he's an absolutely brilliant player. I think we'll lose him, so we're going to need to find a pretty decent replacement for him. Um, yeah, we're going to lose a couple of players because some might not want to continue playing for the club. Some might look at the situation of being furloughed, and I don't know if any's left, but some players might have left the club already. So that's another thing we've got to look out for. Um, Going forward into attack, we kind of need to strengthen up because we've got players like Michael Gash, who I think is a good player, but for this level, I think he's 34 years old now. He isn't the fittest man in the world, but I think I'm not saying he needs to go, but I think he needs to move on to a club a bit lower down. And I'll be gutted the day he goes because I absolutely love Michael Gash. He's a brilliant player, but I think we need to find someone to replace him. But yeah, going forward, I think strengthening up his defence and someone to replace Sonny Kerry because I'm expecting him to go to a club like up in the League One league championship. So yeah, that's my thought on it. Just yeah, got to look for it, see what happens, and then look to where to strengthen after that.
Hmm. As well, just general progress of the team as well. The team sort of had a bit of a good run, I want to say, around sort of, I think it was about October. The team sort of started pushing up towards mid-table compared to it being down near the relegation. Um, what were sort of the fans thinking at that time? Were they thinking, hold on, something might go on here. We might be that team that sort of sneaks up and gets near to the top. Sort of like what's happened to Chesterfield. Now, they, since they brought their new manager in, but down near the bottom, have just snuck up and are now sort of up near in the playoffs. Is that something that Kingsland were thinking we could be that team?
Personally, I wouldn't think that so soon after going straight up twice in a row. But some people might think some of our fans probably thought we'd have a shot at the playoffs. But you've got to be. I'm trying to think of a word here. You've got to be. Christ, what is it? I can't think of it. So let's just continue. You've got to be apprehensive. That's what I'm looking for. You've got to be apprehensive in what the side is possible to achieve. I would have said possibly mid-table. I wouldn't expect us to be languishing in 21st at the moment. Mid-table would probably be a realistic shout for them. Possibly mid-table to 17th or 18th would be realistic for us. That's all I can really say on that matter.
And what's it like as fans, obviously, because there's a furlough situation, obviously, which is not just the Kings and its other clubs as well, having to furlough players because of finances. And as a result, lots of the younger kids have been getting game time, like we're talking 18, 19 people younger than me even, which it sounds strange, who are now playing week in, week out in the National League every single week, which makes me feel a bit old. But what's that like then? Is it sort of, I guess it's also goes two ways really, because you obviously want to see the best players playing and win every single game and do the best you can. Because it's also good to see some of the younger lads who would have never gotten an opportunity at National League, being honest, let's just sort of be honest, would never really got an opportunity. Otherwise, perhaps got one at National League North, National League South. They're now getting a run of games, and it might be a case of with that run of games, they develop and you might have a good few youngsters coming through in a few years to help the team out.
Yeah, obviously with furlough, we had a pretty bare bones squad. We had our 50-year-old assistant manager on the bench, so that shows how good it's been for us. But we brought in loans from clubs like Bolton, Jack Hickman. We brought in Elkin Baggett from Ipswich, I want to say. But the one that's really caught my eye is one of my good mates from high school, actually, Joe Gascoigne. He's finally been called up by the academy. And he's not actually got any game time yet. He's on the bench, but those kinds of experiences for those players could change them from possibly being like a Southern League or a National League North or South player to possibly catapulting into League One or League Two for the rest of their career, possibly even higher. And I think it's really, as much as I want to see like some Marriott and Southwell and all that playing, I think this kind of experience for the 18, 19, 20-year-olds that's coming here is actually really good for their development and for the club as a whole, because it shows that we just don't use older players, we use players that are younger as well, which I think is really good.
As well then, so I guess it's sort of good also as well, younger players coming through and excited for next season. I guess it's also that some of these guys, not all of them, of course, could become sort of first teamers, and then you can sell them on and stuff like that. I guess it's also as well, it's always better when a guy comes through your academy, sort of one of your own and stuff like that. I think it's always a bit more special when you sort of had a guy who's been at the club since they were 6 or something like that, and they've come through and now they've gone on to the first team and played loads of games. I think it's always special. I know that for my team as well, where we've had players come through from being at a young age, to come through, they're born in a town perhaps even, and then they start in the first team, and then they go on and move, and then they start playing in the Premier League or something like that. I know National League, perhaps not Premier League level, but I guess you might, if you have a player come through, then they end up playing in League One. That's sort of like, yeah, he's our guy, and you sort of feel a bit sort of looking out for the results occasionally and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's just me, but I think I know definitely I do that, and I think a few other people might.
Yeah,
do
exactly.
As well.
Yeah, like with that lad I mentioned, Joe Gascoigne, if he goes up to League One or Championship, in 20 years' time, I can turn around and say to my kids, I went to school with that lad. And you know what? It just makes me feel kind of proud, because you don't expect stuff like this. And to turn around and say, oh, I went to school with that lad, he's a proper nice geezer, when they could be playing for, like, say, West Ham or someone in the Premier League, it's just heartwarming, really. I can't really say anything other than
that. What do you make of us in general then, just the sort of national situation, and just not just Kings Lane, but in general, of, I know you said before, and you were talking about funding and stuff like that on your podcast. What do you make of it? What's your opinion on things like the funding, the fines and points deduction that have now been handed out, and sort of the general sort of, obviously it's not stuff outside of National League hands, that's fair to say. But what do you think of some of the decisions they've been making regarding obviously the situation in the world?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You've obviously got the clubs I think there's about 13 or 14 clubs in the north and south which have been given like 2 or 3 grand fines. And then you've got Dover who literally can't play because they've got no money. And they've been given a £40,000 fine. I find that utterly ridiculous on the part of the league. I think it just shows the competency because, yeah, it shows what kind of punishment you can get when you're not playing. But it's ridiculous. I can't stand it. And Dover really will go bust with that because they can't afford to pay it. I think their chairman has said they're not going to pay it, which could rack up into even more fines. I think someone needs to go in there with a level-headed perspective and just turn around and say, look, don't give them the 40 grand fine. Give them the 12 points deduction for next season and let them expunge this season and just move on. If we give them a 12-point deduction, they're favourites to go down. We don't have them in the league anymore. It just shows them not to continue. I think that's the fairest way to do it. I just think £40,000. What on earth they do? That is ridiculous. Get in the bin with that.
Finding someone for having no money is a bit. I mean, I heard of some strange stuff, but finding people for having no money is a strange one. But yeah, I mean, I think you talk about it a bit more in depth on your podcast, obviously, which we're going to have a quick chat about now. We said before. So your podcast, then, do you want to give a bit more, still brief, obviously, but still a bit more of a detailed overview of how you started it, whose idea it was, what your sort of ideas are for it, and sort of plans going forward for it?
Yeah, so podcast itself started in January. At first, I think it's just an idea for a bit of lockdown fun. A lad called George from Torquay, he came up with the idea with a Yeovil fan called Brad. Both don't do it anymore, so we just kind of took it on to be our own. Numbers fluctuate each week based on who's at work, who's not at work, who can come on, who can't come on, etc. Yeah, there's a diverse amount of teams in the podcast. Like one person who still comes on every week just to talk about football in a whole is Hampton and Richmond fan. We've got Woking fans, we've got Hartlepool fans, we've got Wealdstone fans, we've got obviously myself being a Kingsland fan, sadly. We've had Torquay on, we've had Yeovil on. Yeah, and we do occasionally do like chairman interviews, we do player interviews, all that. We had a Tunbridge Angels fan on, Mark Davidson, I think his name is. He does vlogs there. We've had Steve Cleave, Kingsland chairman, on, and we're looking to kind of make that wider in future times and get more and more people on, like run a mini series along with the main one with fans, owners, and players of different clubs. Which, yeah, considering we only started a couple of months ago, I think we've grown quite quickly. We try to keep it as professional as we can with the debates and everything. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, really, and we hope to continue it after people go back to work on 12th of April. That's all we really can say at the moment. It will continue because you've got some who don't work, but for those that work, like myself, I won't be on every week because I work in a pub. We get different rotas every week, and yeah, that's all I can really say for it.
And sort of what are the long-term plans then you have? Obviously, it's not just yours, it's obviously your mates and other people on it. What are the long-term plans?
Yeah.
What other stuff any other stuff? Because I know we've obviously what I do here with DeFi football and stuff like that, and the ideas you come up and plans you have and stuff like that. Any other ideas you're thinking of what you're going to do, expanding and doing other stuff? Is that in your mind, or is it you solely thinking now we're going to stick to this one podcast and just keep going forward with that?
I think at the moment, just while the world sorts itself out, we're going to stick with it. It's not going to become like we record in one room or anything because we've got fans that live up north, we've got fans that live in London, we've got myself in Norfolk. That would just be impossible. Yeah, I think hopefully we stick with it. There's nothing else we can really do apart from that. Like I say, we're going to try and make it look better with different owners and players and fans coming on. Um, yeah, see if we can get new people on the podcast on weekly. And also, I forgot to mention we have got a Notts County fan on as well, which provides a good laugh sometimes. So yeah, just yeah, keep it as it's going for the moment, and then see what we can do in a normal world.
Yeah, and we'll obviously leave all those links in the description as well, so you can go and have a watch of that and have a listen to some of the stuff, especially like the interview, I think, with Kingsley and owner, obviously, talking about the situation there. Obviously, and that would have been obviously good for you to have that on your thing. Obviously, I think I've had that as well, is that you have someone on, obviously, of your team, your support, you do get a bit more excited and stuff like that, because it's something you know about,
Yeah,
care about more, obviously. I've had that as well with these as well. But yeah, thanks to you, mate, for taking time out and having a chat about Kings Lynn, National League in general, and obviously your podcast. And perhaps have you back on again if something happens, second manager or something like that. Have a chat on about whatever that
yeah,
thing is. Because that's what we're looking to do with these, is stuff talking, hopefully, about stuff like a team sacks a manager, or stuff, or a big player signs or leaves, or something like that. Notable events that happen with the clubs. Have a fan on and have a chat about that, and they could tell us obviously their point of view or whatever that is. But yeah, thanks to you, mate, for
yeah.
taking time out of your day to come on.